Welcome back and welcome to my February wrap-up. Normally I would wait until the first of the next month to film my wrap-up, but at this point in the month I know that I've got like a day and a half left and I've got a ton of things to do in that day and a half, so I know I'm not going to finish any more books in that time. So that is why I am filming and uploading this on the 27th of February rather than waiting until the 1st of March. Of course, my next video will be my March TBR, so you'll learn a bit more about what I didn't manage to read in February that I'm planning to read in March, because as kind of predicted, I didn't have a great reading month. I read quite a lot, but I didn't read everything I wanted to, and a lot of my reading felt a little bit on the rush side just because I was trying to get things read by publication dates, and yeah, maybe I should have read some more February releases in January in hindsight. But yes, I don't have an awful lot of physical books to show you because I actually only read one physical book this month and the rest of them were ebooks and audiobooks. So I've got some pictures, I've got my iPad to show you the covers, but as always you can go to my blog post, my February wrap-up blog post, to find out some more information about the books, and a couple of these I've got reviews of on my blog or I've got a video about on here. So first of all, the sole physical book that I read this month, yes, just the one physical book, and that is The Sunday Lunch Club by Julia Ashton. I read this book over a weekend and basically finished it at Sunday lunchtime, which was quite cool. I had to finish it by Sunday lunchtime because I knew that I had to go out and pick my mum up from the airport Sunday afternoon, so I was on a bit of a deadline for this one. But this book was fantastic. I have already reviewed it on my blog, so I will leave that blog post below so you can read my thoughts. This book is out in the UK on April the 19th, so it's a little bit ahead, but I'm glad that I read it when I wasn't kind of rushing to read it for the publication date, and it was absolutely fantastic. When you talk about a book's giving you all the feels, this one just gives you everything. I laughed, I cried, it made me think. I was laughing with them and at them. I was crying with joy and sadness. It literally had all the feels, but I talk in a little bit more detail in that blog post, so check the description box for that. Then moving on to ebooks, nice and quickly, I've got a little slideshow on my iPad. Ignore the cracks on my iPad, please. So the first one that I read was The Beach Wedding by Dorothy Coomson. I need to get this so that I've not got the light shining on the screen. Oh, and just, you know, randomly touching it there. This was one of the quick reads. I made a video about this year's quick reads books and the ones that I wanted to read, so I will leave a link to that up here and down there so you can watch that to learn a little bit more information about the quick reads. Then the next one I read, which I've just finished, which was released on the 22nd of February in the UK, is Misogynation, which is by Laura Bates. You know I am a massive fan of Laura Bates. I loved Girl Up, I loved Everyday Sexism as books, and this was no exception. This is a collection of columns that she's written and essays that she's written, and just follows along the same lines as her other books, and it's just fantastic. I'm so glad that I read it. Then I read The Last Laugh by Tracy Bloom. This came out in the UK on the 23rd of February, and this one was really, really funny whilst dealing with quite a serious topic. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I mean, you know, again, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I'm a massive fan of Tracy Bloom's writing. She has an amazing way with words, and just, yes, I just love her books and I just eat them up. I read this in basically one sitting and it did make me laugh out loud, even though it deals with that serious issue that, again, I won't tell you because I don't want to spoil you. Then, right at the beginning of the month, I read part 2 of Random Acts of Kindness by Victoria Walters. This is a serialized novel. Parts 1 and 2 are out now. Part 3 is coming very soon. I believe it's out beginning of April, I want to say, like 1st of April. It's a great series so far. It's properly like heartwarming and just glorious to read, and you will sit and read this in one sitting, because it's one of those that you can read over a lunchtime or over a nice kind of lazy afternoon coffee. It's not that long, but it's got everything in it considering the fact that it's not that long. And I have reviewed this one on my blog post already, so I will leave a link to that in the description box if you want to know more. Then the next one I read was the Perfectly Imperfect Woman by Millie Johnson. Again, just like I said with Tracy Bloom, Millie Johnson's humour is fantastic. I made a video about her book that was released last year on this channel, so I'll leave a link to that. And I have already reviewed this one on my blog, so I will leave a link to that below. And this one is just full of great northern humour. Like, there's nothing better when, you know, you live somewhere where your accent isn't the same as anyone else's accent, to be able to hear, so to speak, your accent on the page of a book and be able to hear the kind of terms that you use on the page of the book is always absolutely fantastic. And this book has a lot of cheesecake in it as well, so it definitely comes with an advisory of make sure that you have access to cheesecake before reading this book, because otherwise you'll end up wasting reading time going out and either buying cheesecake or buying the ingredients to make cheesecake. So just make sure before picking this one up that you have access to cheesecake, because it comes with that recommendation. Then I made a whole video about this one, so I can link that for you up here, down there, to hear my thoughts on this one. And this is Surprise Me by Sophie Kinsella. This is the US cover. This is the UK cover. It came out in the US on the 13th of February, which means 6, take away. So the I can't do any maths today. 7th of February, it came out in the UK. 13th, 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th of February, it came out in the UK. You have to forgive me, I'm really not feeling very well. I've just managed to get dressed to make this video. But yes, this one I made a whole video about, and I put the video up on publication day, so that'll tell you when it was released. So yes, definitely go and watch that for my thoughts on this one. You know I'm a massive Sophie Kinsella fan as well. This month has been absolutely amazing for authors that I love releasing their new releases, but it has meant for me having to read them, because I can't have them have a new book out and me not read them. So it's meant a lot of reading for me, which is why sometimes I've felt a little bit rushed. But then it's been a massively busy month. I've been to like 3 different states this month, and I've had my mum visiting, and I've been doing other things and just generally having a good time, but less time for reading, more time for living. Couple more books for you to get to. Let's move on to audiobooks now. We are done with the ebook portion. The audiobook that I listened to that I had on ebook, but then it was release day and I wanted to read it straight away, so I downloaded the audiobook, and that is The Year That Changed Everything by Kathy Kelly. Kathy Kelly writes great books about older women, not necessarily just women in their 20s or just women in their 30s. And this one concerns a woman who is just turning 30, another woman who is just turning 40, and another woman who is just turning 50, and kind of the way their year changes, and none of their birthdays are what they expected them to be, and none of their kind of decade years are what they expected them to be, and exactly what that means. And Kathy Kelly is one of those people who again manages to take some serious issues and write about them in a kind of heartwarming and almost humorous way. There was points in this book where I laughed, there was points in this book where I cried. The audiobook was really, really well done, and I do have a full review of this one on my blog if you want to know some more of my thoughts. But this one came out in the UK on the 22nd of February. And then I also listened to, and I believe that one of the narrators on this book was the same as the narrator for the Kathy Kelly book, because both of these authors are Irish authors and both incredibly funny women. I've met both of them at book events and they've just been so funny, and that really comes across in their writing. And that is Our Little Secret by Claudia Carroll. This one came out on the 8th of February in the UK as well, and I listened to this one on audiobook, and again it was very well done, and the tagline really sums it up. It says, "What if the perfect life wasn't yours anymore?" Which is quite interesting as a tagline, and the premise behind this book wasn't anything like anything I've read before. I have got a full review of this one on my blog, so if you want to click the link below, you can read my thoughts on that one as well. And then I did a reread, and I did a reread that I enjoyed so much. I think I might have already talked about it on here, but I did this reread and I wanted to have a physical copy of the book here to show you, and I was planning on buying a physical copy of this book in the Strand when I was in New York, because last time I was there I saw that they had a really nice edition of it, and I had like 3 different people looking for this edition of this book in the Strand, which it's a big bookshop, you know. There was a lot of drama before lunchtime whilst I was looking for this book, and I didn't manage to get it, so I can't hold up the physical copy. I am going to order a copy with them because I really wanted 2 copies as well. I didn't just want 1 copy. I wanted a copy to give to someone else as well. It's not like I was just going to buy the 1 copy. Couldn't find it, but I loved this reread, and I'm going to write a blog post or maybe make a video once I get my actual copy about my experience of rereading, because this was a book which I absolutely loved the first time I read it, and the first time I read it was 2011, which was when it was released, and so this book is now 7 years old, just about, and it still stands today as good as it was back then, and the messages that she puts across are still completely relevant today, and that is How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. This was the first Caitlin Moran that I read, and ever since then, anything she has released I have read, and she has a new YA fiction novel coming out in May or June, I believe, in the UK, and I've seen some proof copies going out, and they look like cassettes, like audio cassettes. So excited. I'm so looking forward to it. So yes, I loved my reread of this one. If you haven't read it, read it. Honestly, it's amazing. The audiobook was fantastic as well. I read it as a physical book the first time, and rereading in terms of the audiobook was amazing. She reads it so good. And then I just finished on my flight home yesterday. I finished kind of at an inconvenient time, because it was like, oh, do I start reading another book? Do I start listening to another book? So I just watched episodes of Big Bang Theory instead, because I'd finished this one, and that is What Happened by Hillary Clinton. This is the UK cover. This is the US cover. I borrowed this one from my library on audiobook, so I had this cover on my phone, and I actually started listening to this one back in November, but then it had to be returned to the library because it is a long book. It is a long audiobook, and it is a hefty physical book. I so enjoyed this, and it's read by the author, which is always fantastic, just like the last book that I mentioned. And yeah, I started in November, but it had to go back to the library because I didn't have time to finish it, and obviously there was a massive hold list on it, and I got it again this month and picked up where I left off and read the rest of it during the month of February. I was listening to it whilst walking around New York, and then finished it off on the plane back from New York, so that was quite cool. And yeah, it was really interesting to hear her stories and to hear her telling the stories. Parts of it did make me cry, parts of it did make me angry, but it was just, yeah, it was really interesting, and I feel like I learned a lot from it as well. But yes, and then finally I have a physical copy of an audiobook that I listened to. I got the physical copy of this one intending to read the physical copy, but then I ended up downloading the audiobook from the library, and it's all read by one author as the one narrator is the audiobook, but the physical book itself has lots and lots of authors who I've enjoyed their own books, so I was definitely going to pick this one up, and that is Nasty Women, and it's by all these amazing authors, and I so enjoyed this. Again, I was like nodding along to it, and the great thing about this is these authors are all so diverse. So we hear about feminism, resistance and revolution in Trump's America, and we hear about that from the point of view of somebody who has a disability, of lots of people who are various different races and classes and various different like statuses, whether they were born here or not, and some people who worked on the Hillary campaign, and some people who are just amazing writers of feminist books that I like to read. Yes, I think this will be one that I come back to. I read Nasty Women up here. I talked about that in a whole video, the UK version, and so it was interesting to hear the US version, because both of these books, again, they have a really diverse range of authors, and that's what's so great about them. It's not just white women, it's not just black women, it's not just straight women, it's not just able-bodied women. It covers the whole spectrum, and I think that that is absolutely fantastic, and both those books do that. So Nasty Women, they're called the same thing. This is the US one. The UK one has different essays in it. I thought it was the same, but it isn't. It's different things. So yeah, it was really great to read. And I seem to have managed to talk an awful lot about not very many books. I think I talked less in my January wrap up when I read a lot more, so apologies that this has been a long video. I hope you stuck with me to the end. If you have, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry I'm not 100% today, I'm just not feeling great. I think the change in temperature from like hot Denver to cold Denver to hot New York to wet and cold New York, on and off planes, just has taken its toll on me, and my immune system's gone, oh, I give up, I don't know what I'm doing. You can see it's a gorgeous day today, but it's cold. My body doesn't know what to do with it. Too many different temperatures, I think. But that is my February wrap up. If you want to compare to my February TBR, I'll have left a link to that up above, because it was a fairly ambitious TBR. I was never going to get to that many books. And yes, I will be back with my March TBR on Thursday for you, so I will have some books to show you that I want to read in the month of March. There will be some ebooks as well, because I do have some copies from NetGalley that I want to read, so but I do definitely have some physical books that I want to read as well. So I will see you then with that next video. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this one. If you stuck right through to the end, and make sure you're subscribed so that that next video hits your subscription feed. I will see you on Thursday. Bye.